I can't marry you. I'm in love with someone else. Those 8 words shattered the silence of St. Mary's Cathedral on what was supposed to be the happiest day of Rachel Morrison's life. I can't marry you. I'm in love with someone else. 300 guests sat frozen in the pews, their breaths caught in their throats as they watched the impossible unfold before their eyes. I can't marry you. I'm in love with someone else. The bride stood there in her $15,000 dress, her hands trembling as they clutched the bouquet of white roses that now felt like thorns against her skin. But what came next, what Marcus Davidson said next, would become the scandal that rocked Dallas society for years to come. I'm in love with your sister. The gasps were audible, faces froze in shock. Rachel's mother collapsed into her seat. Her father's face turned crimson with rage. Because in that moment, standing at the altar in front of God and everyone who mattered in their lives, Marcus Davidson did what no one could have imagined. He destroyed one woman to claim another. But let's back up. Let me tell you how we got here. How a love story turned into a nightmare, how betrayal wore the mask of romance, and how karma would eventually serve justice in the most unexpected way. Before we continue with this story, I need you to do something. If you're watching this, please subscribe to Lavin Folktales right now. Click on that subscribe icon to subscribe for free and turn on that notification bell. Hit the like button to like this video and comment below with your country so I know where you're watching from. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of what I'm about to tell you. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Her name was Rachel Morrison, and if you had told her 6 months before her wedding day that her groom would abandon her at the altar for her own sister, she would have laughed in your face and called you crazy. Her life was everything she'd dreamed of, or at least that's what she thought. Rachel was 28 years old, a pediatric nurse at Dallas Children's Hospital, with smooth brown skin that glowed under the Texas sun and eyes that saw the good in everyone. She'd met Marcus Davidson 3 years earlier at a charity fundraiser, and from their first conversation, she knew he was different. Marcus was 32, a real estate developer with his own company, Davidson Properties. He was handsome in that classic way, tall, well-dressed, with a smile that made investors open their checkbooks and women turn their heads. But what Rachel loved most was how attentive he seemed, how he remembered the small things, how he made her feel like the only woman in the world. What she didn't know was that Marcus Davidson was a collector. He collected success, properties, status symbols, and Rachel, with her kindness and her solid middle-class family and her respectable career, was supposed to be his perfect trophy wife, until he met something he wanted more. Rachel's younger sister, Vanessa, was 24 years old, and everything Rachel wasn't. Where Rachel was nurturing and gentle, Vanessa was bold and magnetic. Where Rachel wore conservative dresses and minimal makeup, Vanessa commanded attention in designer clothes and red lipstick. She worked as a marketing executive and lived her life like she was always on stage. The two sisters had always been different, but they'd also always been close. Rachel adored Vanessa. She celebrated her sister's confidence, never felt threatened by it, never competed with it. That's why she never suspected a thing. It started innocently enough. Marcus would ask Vanessa for advice about surprising Rachel. They'd text about gift ideas, about the wedding plans, about keeping secrets from the bride-to-be. Rachel thought it was sweet that her fiancé and her sister were bonding. She didn't know that their texts had evolved from friendly to flirtatious. She didn't know that Marcus would show up at Vanessa's apartment after telling Rachel he was working late. She didn't know that while she was picking out wedding invitations and tasting cakes and planning their future, he was building a completely different future behind her back. The affair had been going on for 7 months. 7 months of lies, of stolen moments, of betrayal so deep it would leave scars that might never heal. And Vanessa? She'd convinced herself this was love, that Marcus choosing her over her sister proved she was special, desirable, worth breaking every rule for. She didn't think about the woman she was destroying. She only thought about the man she was stealing. The wedding planning continued. Rachel was glowing, excited, completely oblivious to the conspiracy happening right under her nose. Her mother, Patricia Morrison, spent her life savings helping pay for the wedding. Rachel's father, Robert, a retired postal worker, took out a small loan to make sure his daughter had the perfect day. They invited 300 people, friends, family, colleagues, everyone who had watched Rachel grow up and become the compassionate woman she was. The day before the wedding, at the rehearsal dinner, Marcus stood up to give a toast. Everyone smiled, expecting the typical declarations of love and gratitude. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice clear and confident, "everything changes." Rachel beamed at him, her eyes shining with happiness. She had no idea he meant something entirely different. That night, Vanessa texted him, "Are you sure about tomorrow?" His response came immediately, "I've never been more sure of anything." She thought he meant he was sure about choosing her, but Marcus Davidson was playing a game neither sister fully understood yet. Saturday, June 15th, 2018, St. Mary's Cathedral in downtown Dallas. The sun streamed through stained glass windows, painting the white pews in colors of red and gold. Rachel stood in the bridal suite with her bridesmaids, her mother crying happy tears as she helped fasten the back of the wedding dress. It was a masterpiece, white silk with delicate lace, a cathedral train that flowed behind her like a river. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale. In the main hall, 300 guests settled into their seats. Marcus stood at the altar with his groomsmen, looking calm and collected in his custom-made tuxedo. Vanessa sat in the front row, wearing a burgundy bridesmaid dress, her hands clasped in her lap, her heart racing with anticipation for what was about to happen, because she knew. Marcus had told her the night before exactly what he planned to do. The music began. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle one by one. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The wedding march started playing. Everyone rose to their feet. Rachel appeared at the end of the aisle, her arm linked through her father's. She was radiant, glowing. Every person in that cathedral could see the pure joy on her face as she looked toward the altar, toward the man she believed would be her husband. She walked slowly, savoring every moment, her eyes locked on Marcus. He looked back at her, his expression unreadable. Step by step, she moved closer. Her father's hand trembled slightly on her arm. He'd later say that some part of him sensed something was wrong, but he couldn't have imagined what was coming. They reached the altar. Robert kissed his daughter's cheek and placed her hand in Marcus's. Then he stepped back to sit beside his wife. The priest opened his Bible, ready to begin the ceremony. The cathedral was silent except for the rustle of programs and the occasional sniffle of happy tears. "Dearly beloved," the priest began, "we are gathered here today." Wait, that single word from Marcus cut through the air like a knife. The priest stopped mid-sentence. Rachel's smile faltered. A confused murmur rippled through the guests. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, his voice carrying to every corner of the cathedral. "I can't do this." Rachel's face went pale. "What?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can't marry you." He said it louder now, making sure everyone could hear. "I'm in love with someone else." Time seemed to stop. Rachel stood there, unable to process what she was hearing. This had to be a joke, a terrible, cruel joke that would end any second. But Marcus wasn't laughing. "I'm in love with your sister." The reaction was instantaneous. Patricia Morrison screamed. Robert jumped to his feet, his face contorted with rage. Guests began talking all at once, their voices rising in shock and disbelief. Rachel turned slowly, her wedding dress swishing around her, to look at Vanessa. And she saw it, saw the truth written all over her sister's face. Not surprise, not horror, guilt, and something worse, anticipation. "Vanessa!" Rachel's voice broke on her sister's name. Vanessa stood up from her seat in the front row. She was shaking, but she was also smiling. Actually smiling. "I'm sorry, Rachel," Vanessa said, but there was no real remorse in her voice. "We didn't mean for this to happen, but we're in love." Marcus took Vanessa's hand right there at the altar, in front of 300 witnesses, in front of Rachel's parents who had paid for this wedding, in front of the woman whose heart he was shredding into pieces. "You can't be serious," Rachel finally said, her voice growing stronger even as tears began streaming down her face. "You can't be serious." "I am," Marcus replied. "I'm sorry for the timing, but I couldn't go through with a marriage when my heart belongs to someone else." Rachel's father lunged forward, but 3 groomsmen held him back. "You son of a..." The words devolved into incoherent rage. Rachel stood there in her expensive dress, in front of everyone she knew, and felt her entire world collapse. The humiliation was crushing, the betrayal was suffocating. The pain was unbearable. But what hurt most, what would haunt her for years, was watching her baby sister, the girl she protected and loved and cheered for their entire lives, walk out of that cathedral hand in hand with the man who just destroyed her. That day became known as the Dallas Cathedral Scandal. It made local news. It spread on social media. 300 people had witnessed it, and 300 people told the story to everyone they knew. For weeks, Rachel couldn't leave her apartment. The humiliation was too much. She took a leave of absence from work. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She spent days in bed crying until she had no tears left. Her parents were devastated, financially and emotionally. They'd lost their savings on a wedding that never happened. And they'd lost one daughter to betrayal while watching their other daughter drown in grief. Meanwhile, Marcus and Vanessa moved forward as if they'd done nothing wrong. They posted photos together on social media. They attended events as a couple. Vanessa wore the engagement ring Marcus had originally bought for Rachel. He didn't even bother getting a new one. 3 months after the cathedral scandal, Marcus and Vanessa got married in a small private ceremony in Las Vegas. Only a handful of people attended. Vanessa's parents refused to come. Most of her friends had abandoned her, horrified by what she'd done. But Vanessa convinced herself she didn't care. She had Marcus. She'd won. Or so she thought. Rachel, meanwhile, was slowly rebuilding. It wasn't easy. Some days she could barely function. But her closest friend, Keisha Williams, a fellow nurse, refused to let her give up. "You're going to survive this," Keisha told her one night, sitting on Rachel's couch, holding her hand. "And one day you're going to thrive. I promise you." Rachel didn't believe her, but she got up the next morning anyway. She went back to work. She focused on her patients, the sick children who needed her care and her compassion. She threw herself into helping others because she couldn't yet help herself. Months turned into a year, then 2 years. Rachel slowly transformed. The softness that Marcus had exploited became strength. The trust that Vanessa had betrayed became wisdom. She learned to love herself in a way she never had before. She also met someone new. His name was David Chen, a pediatric surgeon at the same hospital. He was kind, patient, genuine. He knew about her past. Everyone in Dallas knew about the cathedral scandal. But he didn't treat her like damaged goods. He treated her like the remarkable woman she was. They started as friends, then colleagues who grabbed coffee together, then people who looked forward to seeing each other every day. Their relationship grew slowly, naturally, built on mutual respect and genuine connection. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus and Vanessa's marriage was crumbling. It turned out that a relationship built on betrayal and stolen moments doesn't translate well to everyday life. The excitement faded, the passion cooled, and what was left was two selfish people who'd hurt everyone around them for something that wasn't even real. Marcus's business started failing. Turns out investors don't trust men who publicly humiliate their fiancés at the altar. His reputation was ruined. Deals fell through. Partners backed out. Davidson Properties went bankrupt within 3 years. Vanessa lost her marketing job after someone sent her boss screenshots of the social media posts she'd made bragging about stealing Marcus. No company wanted to employ someone known for betrayal. They moved from their luxury apartment to a small 2-bedroom. They fought constantly. Marcus blamed Vanessa for ruining his reputation. Vanessa blamed Marcus for not being the fantasy she'd imagined. 5 years after the cathedral scandal, their marriage was over in everything but paperwork. And that's when Marcus made a decision that would shock everyone all over again. He called Rachel. She didn't answer. He called again and again. He showed up at the hospital where she worked. Security escorted him out. He sent letters to her apartment. She threw them away without opening them. Finally, he caught her in the parking garage after her shift one evening. "Rachel, please," he said, stepping out from behind a column. "Just give me 5 minutes." She froze when she saw him. He looked nothing like the confident man who'd humiliated her 5 years earlier. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by cheap clothes. His cocky smile was replaced by desperation. He'd aged badly. Stress and regret had carved lines into his face. "What do you want, Marcus?" Her voice was calm, steady. She wasn't the same broken woman he'd left at that altar. "I made a mistake," he said, his voice cracking. "The biggest mistake of my life. I threw away something real for something that was never meant to last." Rachel stared at him, saying nothing. "Vanessa and I, we're done. It's been over for a long time. We never should have happened." He took a step closer. "But you and me, Rachel, that was real. What we had was real." "No," Rachel said quietly. "What I felt was real. What you did was calculated." "I know." Tears were forming in his eyes now. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed something beautiful. But I've spent 5 years realizing what I lost. And I'm begging you." His voice broke completely. "I'm begging you for another chance." Rachel looked at this man who had once been her entire world. This man who had shattered her in front of 300 people. This man who had chosen her sister and then discarded her just as easily. And she felt nothing. No anger, no pain, nothing. "I'm engaged," she said simply. Marcus's face went white. "What?" "His name is David. He's a surgeon. He's kind and honest, and he treats me with the respect you never did." She held up her left hand, showing him the ring. "We're getting married in 3 months." "Rachel, please!" "I'm not the same woman you left at that altar, Marcus. That woman was naive. She believed in fairy tales. She trusted too easily." Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. "The woman standing in front of you now knows her worth, and she would never settle for someone who proved he didn't deserve her." "I've changed. I don't care," she interrupted. "I genuinely hope you find happiness. I hope you learn from your mistakes. But you won't find redemption through me. I'm not your second chance. I'm not your consolation prize. I'm not available to heal your guilt." She started walking toward her car. Marcus called after her. "I love you." She turned back one final time. "No, Marcus. You loved the idea of me. You always did. You loved having someone who adored you unconditionally, but you never loved me enough to be faithful, honest, or kind. That's not love. That's convenience." And with that, Rachel Morrison got in her car and drove away, leaving Marcus Davidson standing alone in that parking garage, finally understanding what he'd lost. 3 months later, Rachel married David Chen in an intimate ceremony at a small chapel outside Dallas. 50 people attended, family, close friends, people who had supported her through the darkest time of her life. Keisha was her maid of honor. Rachel's parents walked her down the aisle together, their eyes shining with joy to see their daughter truly happy again. When David said, "I do," when he placed the ring on her finger, when he kissed her as husband and wife, Rachel felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. No drama, no scandal, no betrayal. Just love. Real, honest, patient love. Vanessa sent a card. Rachel never opened it. Marcus showed up outside the venue. David's groomsmen made sure he never got close. And Rachel? She barely noticed. She was too busy building the life she deserved with a man who deserved her. This story teaches us powerful lessons about betrayal, redemption, and the strength it takes to rebuild after devastation. If Rachel's journey can help even one person walk away from someone who doesn't value them, or give someone the courage to believe they can survive public humiliation and find happiness again, then her suffering will have meant something beyond her own transformation. Let's look at the key lessons from this remarkable story. First lesson, trust your instincts even when you don't want to. Rachel's father said later that something felt wrong when he walked his daughter down that aisle, but he dismissed it because he wanted to believe in Marcus. Trust is beautiful, but intuition is protection. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore red flags because you've already invested time, money, or emotion. Your instincts are trying to protect you. Second lesson, how someone treats others reveals how they'll eventually treat you. Marcus's willingness to publicly humiliate Rachel should have told Vanessa everything she needed to know about his character. If someone will betray their partner for you, they'll eventually betray you for someone else. Character isn't situational, it's consistent. Someone who lacks integrity in one relationship will lack it in all relationships. Third lesson, public humiliation doesn't define your worth. Rachel experienced one of the most painful public betrayals imaginable. 300 people watched her world fall apart. It made the news. It became gossip. But she didn't let that moment define the rest of her life. She rebuilt, healed, and eventually thrived. What people say about you doesn't determine who you are. Your response to hardship reveals your true character. Fourth lesson, real love doesn't require betrayal to exist. Vanessa convinced herself that her relationship with Marcus was special because it was forbidden, stolen, dramatic. But real love doesn't need those things. Rachel's relationship with David proved that genuine love is built on respect, honesty, patience, and friendship, not secrecy and betrayal. If your relationship requires hurting other people, it's not love, it's selfishness. Fifth lesson, healing is not linear, but it is possible. Rachel didn't bounce back immediately. She took time off work. She cried for weeks. She struggled, and that's okay. Healing from betrayal takes time. Some days are better than others. But with support, self-care, and determination, you can rebuild your life. You can find joy again. You can trust again. The pain doesn't disappear completely, but it does become manageable. Sixth lesson, your worth is not determined by who chooses you. Marcus chose Vanessa over Rachel, and for a while Vanessa thought that made her special, superior, more desirable. But being chosen by someone with poor character isn't a prize. It's a warning. Your worth isn't validated by who wants you. It's inherent. Rachel learned this lesson the hard way, but once she understood it, she became unstoppable. Today, 7 years after that awful day in St. Mary's Cathedral, Rachel and David are thriving. They have 2 beautiful daughters, ages 3 and 5. Rachel still works as a pediatric nurse, now as the head of her department. David is one of the most respected surgeons at Dallas Children's Hospital. They live in a modest home filled with laughter, family dinners, and genuine happiness. No drama, no scandal, just the quiet, beautiful life Rachel always deserved. Her relationship with her parents is stronger than ever. They see their daughter happy, healed, and whole. As for Vanessa, she eventually divorced Marcus and moved to another state, trying to escape the reputation that followed her. They occasionally exchange brief, awkward texts on holidays. Rachel has forgiven her sister, not because Vanessa deserved it, but because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Marcus Davidson's business never recovered. He works in property management now, a far cry from owning his own development company. He's alone, reportedly still single, still carrying the weight of the worst decision he ever made. If you're watching this and you're facing betrayal right now, whether from a partner, a family member, or a friend, please hear this. You will survive this. It doesn't feel like it right now. The pain feels permanent. The humiliation feels endless. But it's not. You are stronger than you think. You have more value than anyone who betrayed you could ever understand. And on the other side of this pain is a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. Someone wiser, stronger, more resilient. Don't let betrayal steal your future. Don't let someone else's poor character convince you that you're unworthy. You are not what happened to you. You are how you rise from it. Now I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. If you were one of the 300 guests in that cathedral, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent? Would you have confronted Marcus? Would you have comforted Rachel? What do you think the right response would have been in that moment? And here's another question. Did Rachel do the right thing by forgiving her sister? Or should some betrayals be unforgivable? Where's the line between self-preservation and family loyalty? Drop your answers in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I love hearing your perspectives. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it taught you something valuable, please do these things. First, subscribe to Laven Folktales if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next story. We share powerful stories of betrayal, justice, redemption, and transformation every week. Second, hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories, and the more people who watch, the more lives we might be able to touch and change. Third, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe you know someone recovering from betrayal. Maybe you know someone who needs to understand that public humiliation doesn't define them. Maybe you know someone who needs hope that happiness is possible after heartbreak. Share this story with them. It might change their life. And finally, stick around and watch some of our other videos. We have stories about karma catching up with cruel people, stories about justice being served, stories about redemption and transformation, family secrets exposed, workplace drama, relationship betrayals, and so much more. There's something for everyone, and I promise you'll find stories that speak to your heart. Thank you for watching this story. Thank you for witnessing Rachel's journey, for experiencing her pain and celebrating her triumph. Remember these lessons. Trust your instincts. Watch how people treat others. Public humiliation doesn't define you. Real love doesn't require betrayal. Healing is possible, and your worth is inherent, not assigned by who chooses you. Stay safe, everyone. Stay strong, and never let anyone make you feel less than the incredible person you are. This is Lavin Folktales. See you in the next story.